What's up, YouTube? Today, once again, we're talking about another video of Fordite here. For all you that don't know what Fordite is also known as Detroit agate. It's basically very, very hard, multiple layers, sometimes hundreds of layers of car paint from the auto manufacturers that is kiln baked, and it becomes rock hard, as you can see. So it's very cuttable. You can make some really incredible, pretty jewelry out of it. A lot of my customers have been asking me exactly, how do you cut it? How are you getting the, the colors and stuff to come out like you are? Because there is a slight learning curve to Fordite, like there is with, with cutting any stone. But it cuts very, very nicely. It's a medium to hard stone. It's similar to like cutting something like rhodochrosite. But it takes a fantastic polish, as you can see on this piece that's face polished to this rough here. And like I said, it's very easy to cut, and it's a lot of fun. It's actually, I was pretty much a purist for years when cutting stones into cabochons and different lapidary projects, and kind of stayed away from any of the man-made stuff until I cut Fordite. And when I cut Fordite, well, the rest is history, and buying several £100s later and now starting to sell it and making cabs and everything else under the sun, it quickly became one of my most favorite products that I think I ever invested in, and, my favorite cutting material. But anyways, when you're cutting Fordite, just a couple little simple tips and tricks here. Sorry for the quality of my video. I'm not exactly a videographer. I'm a lapidarist. So, needless to say, if you could just bear with me. But when you're cutting Fordite, you have several types of, say, different shapes and stuff. We'll just pull a few out here. And, of course, the goal for most people that are watching this video is you're going to want to cut, things like cabochons. Little guys like, let's see if we can get them here in the video. For instance, like, stuff like this, or, this is actually a little stand here that was made for something. Some pendants and stuff like that. And what you want to do first is you want to take your rough, and you want to visualize exactly like, what are you looking to cut out of it? Are you looking to cut a cab? Are you looking to cut, a thicker bead? And once you have that in mind, in order to cut it so that you're getting this pretty top color over top of the entire piece. In fact, this is actually a good piece to show you guys. If you look at from the sides here, you can see how the paint layers actually come and they actually bend. And if you notice, sorry about my shaky hands, if you notice on the top here, the colors are all the way around. You don't see any of these side lines. I was trying to, if you cut Fordite, let's see here if I can show you. You see these lines that are going around the outside of it. Often you'll see when people when they go to cut it, that what ends up happening is they get a little bit of this pretty top layer, and then they get these lines that go all the way around it. And what's happening is you're not following the natural lines of the Fordite itself. To simply do that, for instance, like with this piece here, you see your layers of paint kind of go, and they bend and curve down. So you want to be cutting flat down. You want to be cutting flat down as your top of your cab into those layers, so you're in parallelism or in parallel with those layers of paint. So like up here now, you can cut curves. Up here, you also see how I followed those layers and I'm cutting down into it. Instead of, what people will do is they'll often take a piece, say like something like this little stand, say they want to make a cab out of it, and they'll take it and they'll basically round it over so it's like a huge dome. You can do that. That's how you would cut traditional cabs, or you have other types of cabs that are called buff tops, which are flat on top. When you buy Fordite, if you want to cut stuff that has domes, you want to just simply look for material that's curved. If you notice how this material has a curve to it, over here you have another curve. Over here you have another curve, and then you actually have some area on top that's flat. So out of your curved pieces, you can cut more of like what people would say like your classic high domes, which are, have a nice dome on the top of the cabs, and off your flatter parts of your material, you cut buff tops off them. Now, people often say that, I don't like buff tops or whatever, but you can actually cut some incredibly beautiful buff tops, just off Fordite alone. Here's a little buff top. And basically, let me see if I can zoom in here. Basically, all I did was just cut down flat into the layers. You can see as you get down a little deeper, they start curving on that piece. But there, they pretty much run in parallel. So it's just an easy way of determining when you take a piece and you cut it up. What I generally suggest that you do is most of the rough, at least most of the rough we sell, you're gonna have flat, areas that are flat, areas that are curved, because that's just the nature of Fordite. The racks had flat spots on them where it built up, and they had curves on them. But like some of the pieces I showed you in the other video here, for instance, like this, is a nice flat piece of rough. It's gonna cut some great cabs. And then the end here is more has like a radius on it. So in the end here, what I would do is I would take this and trim this. And this section here is what I would make my more high domes out of. And I would make some pretty buff tops out of here. Now, with Fordite too, you can also take your Fordite when you have thick pieces like this. And you can actually put these on your trim saw and actually split them down the middle. So you can get, multiple slabs. And the thicker the piece, the more you can split them. Generally, Fordite builds up at the very most of, now this is Corvette Material we're talking about, or pretty much any of the other real Fordites. You'll see some fakes out there and stuff that are like this thick. When you see stuff that's, 5-6 inches thick, it's not real. It's some type of industrial paint, or whatnot, or stuff from body shops. People will make it, or even, they just try to quote unquote fake Fordite. And what you see is these pieces that are unbelievably thick. And you would think, oh, well, hey, it's just car paint. I can make it. The difference is that real Fordite actually goes through a kiln after being sprayed each layer. It goes through, I believe, at about 220 degrees for around 20 minutes. And that's basically to harden the paint up that's, that got sprayed onto the car itself. Well, this stuff is the paint that accumulates on the racks that the car body sits on. So every layer got kiln baked, layer after layer after layer after layer. So that's why it's so hard. Stuff that you get from like body shops and whatnot, or some of the stuff that you see out there that's, not quote unquote genuine Fordite. It's going to look great until mostly you try to cut it. And when you try to cut it, you may be able to cut and make some cool looking little things out of it, but you're never going to get a polish on it. It's going to turn to mush. And a lot of it will simply just turn to mush when you go to cut it. But yeah, so that's just a little intro into Fordite. One thing I wanted to mention here in the video is actually a really, really rare type of Fordite that's out there, of the Corvette material. There's actually two types. There's the traditional Corvette material and a lesser known type that I actually call it the custom color booth material, because simply this material, when somebody would order, say, custom accent colors on their Corvette, or say a special color or something like that, they had a different booth where they would take those cars and they would paint them. And they were custom colors. They weren't regular production colors. How do you tell the difference? If you go into Google and you just simply Google Corvette Corvette colors by year, you can actually pull up and you can look up on the internet and actually see what year this color was made and what year this color was made. So too, when you're buying rough, if you're buying rough now, I mean, you can't really ask your seller to, go up and look up every year of every piece. And you can do it. I do it, but it takes a long time. But it's easy that if you see a picture of something, say like this on the internet that you're looking at buying, you can go through and go onto those websites and actually match up the color years. So you can tell exactly what year the rough came from that you're buying, which is kind of cool. But nonetheless, we're talking about the custom color stuff. The custom color-based stuff, there's a very, very, very limited amount of it out there. Then basically they're colors that Corvette produced, but they were not regular production colors. They were for custom accent and custom color cars. And here's actually a piece of regular Corvette material, as we would call it. There, and you could see the traditional color patterns. And here is actually a little pendant that I did, if you can see it, of the custom color stuff. You notice like the greens and the pinks that are in there. And here is actually another one. These are so much better looking in person. I'm so sorry that I'm not the best at YouTube videos here, but just to give you an idea. Now, occasionally, You will see some other people out there that are selling some Corvette. And if you see them selling Corvette and you see these colors in it, you got custom color stuff, buy it up. And I mean, grab it as quick as you can. And lastly, here is a pendant out of the custom color stuff as well. And as you can see, that's actually a, you know, a buff top. It has a slight dome to it. Now, what do you do with the edges on these? That's one thing I wanted to mention. Is if you're making a buff top, if you curl these edges over and start really around these edges, you're going to get lines all the way around it and a little bit of color in the middle, and it's not very desirable. What I generally do is I cut my girdle going around on the stand, and then just simply slightly roll the edges over, right back onto the girdle, right back onto the girdle, and then kind of just recut it a little bit at the end, just so you have something there if you have somebody that's bezel setting. But that's just a quick intro into Fordite. What I generally do is, just lastly, is I take it and cut it just on a normal cabbing machine. I usually start with a 220 metal wheel, then go to a 325 diamond wheel, and then to a 600, and so on and so forth. And you can use whatever polishing method that you so choose to. And that's about it. Fordite is a wonderful thing, and there's not much of it around. So I suggest that if you haven't tried Fordite, give it a shot, because it's a lot of fun. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them below, and I'll try to help you in any way that I can. And thank you for watching.